hopefully you can do a better job than I did last
good.
time.
We're good?
Yep.
All right. Welcome everyone to the September, 8th, 2022 Capital Improvement Plan meeting. So pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we will start with approval of minutes from the September 21st, 2021 meeting. Was anyone actually at that meeting, or is this a bunch of people that are no longer on this?
Yep.
Right, so we all abstain, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask how come you vote on it.
Well, you can still vote for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the record, I have no information whether this is accurate as to what happened at the meeting.
Well, we can table it. You can watch the video because it's online. And I mean, that's what I imagine Sue did too. I mean,
No, I was there.
you were there. Well, when you were doing the record, like.
Yeah, when I was doing the
So.
recording and when I was doing this.
So.
I'll happily vote for it. I just want an asterisk in there.
I mean, I'll trust that it's an accurate
I
representation.
want to trust Gary. Come on. Gary Swanson, trust Gary.
If we can go that it's
Yeah.
good.
Trust Gary. Swanson.
Yeah.
All right, I'll accept the motion on the minutes.
I'll second.
I said I'll accept a motion, sorry.
Okay,
somebody's
I'll
make
make the
motion.
motion to approve the minutes from 2021, September
21st.
21st, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Or, sorry, discussion?
Just to note that we weren't there, but
Yeah.
we accept for Susan and we trust her.
You're accepting this as an accurate representation of the meeting.
Yes.
Right.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, presentation from requesters. Is there an order? I mean, we have
No, we have
Chief
two.
and Sean here,
Yep.
so I feel like we'll start
I
there.
tried to get as many of the people who were requested to come and give a presentation or answer some questions that the committee had at the last meeting. Luckily, I got Chief Jordan and Sean Gregg here, so I think we go with Chief.
Chief might be the quickest.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So we had approved all of your requests.
We did.
Nice.
Thank
you. I'll be out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Have a nice night. I just want to let you know. No, we had a question on the your core vehicle replacement. There's one vehicle with a cap that was listed that's like the new, I think, Interceptor. There was no money allocated against it. The rest of your vehicles, the understanding is that they had been moved into the general fund, and we were trying to understand how we were replacing vehicles out of the general fund without it like kind of upping and downing budgets.
So the one that you see, there was a certain amount of money left in that CIP account for cruisers. That's
Okay.
the one that we're looking to close that account out.
Okay.
A few years ago, my predecessor, Chief True, and the town manager put it into the budget for the reason that the capital improvement projects are long-term projects and that cruisers are a operational cost. That we buy a cruiser every year, and we buy several cruisers or 2 cruisers every 3 years. So that is why they went to that format, just because they said this is not a long-term project, which was what it was explained to us was the idea of the capital improvement program, was kind of like something that you would be planning out 10 years or something like that. We buy a cruiser every year, and that's part of the cost of doing business, and that's the thought process.
Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
No question. I should be the last to ask questions and sitting in the chair.
So every year, because the life expectancy is that for how many you're kind of revolving.
So generally speaking, we have 9 cars. We replace, so a car lasts us about 3 years if it's a line car. We replace those cars essentially every 3 years. So that's why every third year we buy 2 cars. And the reason for that is we have 3 cars that last us between 8 and 9 years. We have one that's lasted us a little bit longer, but we're going to get rid of it. So what that does is it puts all the cars on a rotation. The line cars get replaced every 3 years. Those are used, you see them driving around every day, the black and white cars.
Yeah.
They usually end up with about 130 on it by the time that third year gets here, and they're essentially falling apart. And we put them back together and sometimes give them to other agencies like the code enforcement or the fire department got one of them. But they're not good for what we're doing. They're just not as reliable. The warranties run out. So that's why we replace them every 3 years.
And this one here that you're using CIP is an addition. You're buying
It
an
is
extra
going to
one.
be an addition, and the reason for that is, so we have 9 cars right now. We have several line cars. I have a cruiser. Lieutenant Cookish, who is on the Seacoast Emergency Response Team, has a cruiser that stays with him all the time. And then we have a detective's car. We have one car that's set aside for details, which is usually the oldest car. We only bring that to like a traffic post and have it sit on the side of the road with the lights and stuff on. The reason we went for the additional car this year is we had a tremendous problem with all of the cars and getting them fixed. So we have a couple of 2020 Ford Interceptors, which are essentially Ford Explorers. They have been in the shop numerous times, and when they go to the shop, it's not they're there for a day, it's they're there for 2 weeks. There was where this one of these 2020s, they've had it for a total of 8 weeks since we purchased it, and part of that is to do with COVID. They can't get parts, and things are really backed up, and people are out sick and stuff like that. So what we were finding was that we just didn't have enough cars and an additional spare car. So the way we operate right now is we don't have a spare car. So if we go down one, we have to make do with what we have. I don't know if everybody remembers we had a cruiser that got totaled. At that same time, one of the new cruisers was being worked on, and then a third cruiser went down, and we essentially were responding to some calls, I myself in my private vehicle at one point. So it got to the point where we said we need an extra car here. The school resource officers each take a car every day to the school, so that takes 2 during the day. So we've had 9 cars since 1995, and we thought it was time that we added an additional car. Mainly, we're replacing one of the cars with this new car, and then keeping one of the older cars as a spare car in case one of them goes down.
Other questions?
So if we're expending capital reserve money for this new vehicle, do we CIP doesn't have to approve that?
So the agents to expend out of capital reserve.
Yeah, so it's not our.
Yes.
Got it.
And they have, so one thing I did notice for the committee is that this were the requests for this year, but there are other capital reserve funds that were missing. So we now have in today's packet a list of balances in all the capital reserve funds, which includes the police vehicle fund, which has like 59.
There's about 59,000.
Yeah, so.
And what vehicles do you buy now when you buy them?
We've been buying Fords.
Uh-huh.
We haven't had the greatest of luck with reliability as of late, for a while. We've tried to look into other vehicles, but there's a problem with that. When we switch a vehicle, we have to outfit that new vehicle with different equipment. Sometimes now we can transfer one vehicle to another if we stay with the same brand. We also looked at Chevy Tahoes, and they were essentially the same price, but Chevy wasn't selling police vehicles because they were having such a hard time getting vehicles. A Tahoe is one of their bigger sellers, so they're like, we're not going to sell it to police departments when we can sell it to the public and make a lot more money. We looked into a couple other brands. We looked into Dodge, but they were significantly more expensive. So I think we're
So
going
it's
to end
Ford.
up with a Ford.
So there's the question, all right, because the replacement schedule is as such that it's fairly even. Like, it doesn't impact, it's all of a sudden 1 year you're buying a bunch of vehicles, another year you're not. So I think that was the core question, because previously the police department had, like the other departments, saved up through capital reserve and had an improvement plan for replacement, like your dispatch equipment has
Yep.
its plan.
Yep.
So,
So, quick question. So, Chief, excuse me for, I probably should know this and I don't. When you retire a vehicle, and let's say that vehicle goes to, I think you said the fire department.
Yeah.
Is there any way of, for lack of a better way of saying it, crediting the police department for giving a vehicle to the fire department, so now the fire department doesn't have to buy a vehicle? and that may be postponed because they're using your vehicle. And I guess I'm just trying to think of, the vehicles are important, and is there a way to make sure they're getting credit for the retirement of the vehicles, if you sell them on the secondary market, if you sell them to a dealer, or if you give it to the fire department, one, that revenue comes back, and you've deferred costs for the, again, I'll just use the example of the fire department. Is there any way of looking at it that way as well, as we consider the whole concept?
So, can I essentially rephrase that?
Please.
If you give, and this is not a question for you, it's probably a Rick question, or a Steve question, really, that if you give a vehicle to the fire department, does that add a vehicle to their list of vehicles, or does that defer the replacement of one of their other vehicles that is up
Good
for
way of looking at it.
replacement?
Yep, exactly.
I think that we have been in the normal operational way that we do things here is that there's a certain kind of rotation that when we have a vehicle that has ended its life with us because it's still useful, but not as useful as we need it, like in an emergency situation. The fire department's a bad example because they obviously still drive to emergencies, but
You gave it to the rec department.
well, code enforcement. I know that the engineer may have a car. It's kind of understood that when we get done with one, it's going to go around, and I've always looked at it as ultimately it's the townspeople's vehicle, and we're saving the townspeople money by giving a vehicle to a department that needs one, so they don't have to then in turn purchase one. So we're using it for a good majority of the life, and then we're providing it to somebody else. I think most times the fire department uses it as a car where they're just driving to training or something. But ultimately, I don't know if there would be a way for the fire department to credit us or whatever. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, even though we have different departments, ultimately the townspeople, the taxpayers are the ones that are buying these vehicles, and that it's their vehicle, and we're utilizing it the best we can, what department it went to initially and what budget it was put in. But I don't know if that's a
I was
good.
kind of just thinking of it as a cash flow issue, meaning if we're in the capital improvement, is that something that we should have in the back of our mind as part of our methodology to understand the value of what an additional vehicle would mean to the community, right?
Yeah.
But saying, it's a lot of money, but hey, also there's this benefit of it over here too. And that could just be something that we socialize internally as we make our recommendations. I thought I'd throw it out.
How is the fact that we know the PD cruisers are going to get at some regular interval passed out to other departments for use, how does that impact the vehicle replacement schedule of those departments? Deferring the need for capital reserve fund funding for a vehicle that they know they're going to get one next year.
Right, yeah.
Is it like a regular schedule of where they go, I guess is the question, or is it just whoever happens to need it the most?
Really, honestly, who's in the most need? And we just brought on, and I think we never had that before, so they decided that a vehicle would be appropriate. The code enforcement officer just got one a few years ago. The fire department got one a few years ago. There's many times where the car is deemed that it can't be used, and they'll take it to an auction and they'll sell it, and the money just goes back into the general fund. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
There was one more question. This is on document retention. So on the chief's
Jane had that question.
Jane had
Yeah.
that question. So kind of alluded this in the email. So could you just briefly explain, because we know you're looking to expand your space
Yes.
at the police station.
Yeah.
What-
Is this in response to my picture of all the fires?
Yeah, basically. It shows the wrong picture.
Exactly.
You picked the wrong time to go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll start, but I can
Yeah.
go over. So as far as there's an RSA that tells us what
We're talking about your document retention question about
I apologize. Yeah, so,
Oh, no worries.
He was just about to answer, so perfect time.
okay.
So There's an RSA 33A that governs when we can get rid of records, and it gives you a timetable and things of that nature. We now do a lot of records electronically. We still have a lot of hard copy. The files that you saw, there's still a lot of paper that's generated in file folders. We try and keep everything electronically. And if you do things electronically, you have to have a backup plan. So we have what's called an off-site location where all of our data gets backed up all the time, and we also have a cloud storage that duplicates that. So that's required. You have to do that by law if you're doing anything electronically. A lot of the files that you see have been generated over time. We've run out of space. What we hope to do is get an employee that can start scanning some of those things in and reduce them to electronic stuff, and then we can ultimately get rid of some of the hard files. Some of the files we'll never be able to get rid of because they're of a nature that we have to keep them for eternity. But we're hoping to get that done, but I got to tell you right now, we just don't have the staff, the time to accomplish that. As far as more space, we're certainly looking for it, and I don't know if you saw in one of my projects that was looking for to kind of start a fund to take a look at what's the next best step for us. Is it to somehow renovate the building that we're in? Is it building down the road? But it's beyond my expertise to be able to look at the building and say, what can we do with this, and you know, what space can we get out of this building, or what's the best, most cost-effective way moving forward. I can tell you that the building is a good building. We've taken good care of it, but I think we've outgrown it, and we've outgrown the space. You see a picture of the file room. We don't have any more room there. That wasn't a file room initially. It was an office, and we had to give up that office. Does everybody know what the building looks like as far as the roof lines? We have the 4. So in those eaves, which are not really spaces that are supposed to be used, our evidence room is in there. So as we're walking in to take care of our evidence, you know, it's a space where the guys are working and, you know, leaning over. It's not really, it's secure, but it's not really an appropriate evidence area. It should have climate control. It should have better access. Guys shouldn't have to be leaning over while they're working on stuff. A lot of our storage is in those areas as well. Our locker rooms, we have a women's locker room where if there's more, you can't fit more than one person in it at a time. It's that small. It's really a bathroom with 3 lockers in it. Our men's locker room has 10 school lockers that were put into place in 1995 because they came out of the school because they were throwing them away. And, you know, officers have uniforms, jackets, and whatever. They don't fit in these lockers. And again, we have 10 spots in there. That's not even enough room for all of our people. We have a furnace room upstairs where the rest of the officers have lockers and stuff like that, which is not a great spot either because you're in the furnace room. We don't really have any place to expand currently, and some of the things that are a drawback and I think could potentially cause some issues for us, like the second floor where we have a training room and we have some other spaces, is not compliant ADA. There's no way for somebody to get up there. There's no elevator. And, you know, we just don't have any room to expand. We should have a juvenile lockup area that is specific to juveniles, and we don't have that space right now. And we don't have a conference area where we can speak to people that come in that are, you know, victims of crime away from everybody. The conference room we have is kind of right off the lobby, and
So
it's.
we approve that.
Yep.
But you said something that is actually causing a question in my mind.
Okay.
So you said start a capital reserve for this. The balance that is listed in here is actually, and I can't believe I didn't catch this before, the dispatch police equipment capital reserve fund, which I don't know what the language of the purpose of that capital reserve fund is, but this might be outside of that, for which the voters will need to approve a new capital reserve fund.
Could go buildings and facilities too, potentially.
You could,
Yeah.
but who manages that? Like, who's that for? Steve? Or the engineer?
We'll have to look into that.
We wholeheartedly agree that you need more space. Like, I think the concern is, where is the money, like, we approve the money go into a capital reserve fund, but I would hate to add this to the dispatch capital reserve fund, and then he can't use that for the study that he's looking to get done,
Right.
because of the purpose of the reserve fund.
Plus, it seems more urgent than waiting a couple of years to do the study.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I need, somebody to come in and assess what we have going on and figure out what's the best way to go, because part of the issue is if this is something that's long range, 10 years, then I gotta fix some of the things that I have going on now. But if it's something that we know could happen, then I into something that we know we're gonna,
So-
replace.
How much does the study cost? 15K?
Uh,
The estimate?
that was the low estimate.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested possibly $30,000.
So, can I posit? Yes, we could put it in buildings and grounds, but someone else is managing that, and that could go to any building and ground in the community. So we could say we want it to go to this, and heck, Steve could say, I want it to go to this. The council could be like, okay, but we're gonna spend it on this building and ground thing, because we think it's more urgent. Like, there is a case to be made for a warrant article starting a, police facilities capital reserve fund that will allow them to save money and fund it at the 15K level or something, that allows them to start saving money for we know that we're gonna have to do something.
Right,
So,
so it's
why
a-
not start saving now?
It's a police facilities expansion capital reserve fund.
Exactly.
It starts with the study and then,
I would even make it like the police facilities reserve fund, so,
Yeah.
because you put expansion, all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't use it for things that are outside of
Right, okay.
expanding. Whereas the maintenance of the police department is a building, is in and of itself its own thing that I think probably the chief should be managing, not necessarily building and grounds.
right.
So would this be before or after we voted on this, so would this be coming after this study, or this study already starts and then we try to get us to deal with that?
I mean, we approved this,
Yeah.
but we approved it going into, frankly, I think, an inaccurate capital reserve fund, although we did not dictate which capital reserve fund it goes into in the motion.
Correct.
Yeah, well,
I think we just,
my point is I don't want to keep Jordan waiting, so we just
Yeah.
gotta, so we're gonna take the money out of one capital reserve fund now and then put a warrant article in to make a CRF for it later, or are we gonna make the CRF and then take the
I
money?
think, here's where I think as much as, I think we need to have a dialogue with the town manager, since he is the one who ultimately takes our recommendations and either ignores them or goes with them around thinking we need. I cannot see him disagreeing with the fact that having a capital reserve fund for police facilities.
so this was put into the buildings, and dispatch, based on the amount.
Yeah, but it's not the buildings and dispatch, it's the dispatch and police equipment capital reserve fund.
Yeah. Right, it was put into that one when
Right.
the vote was made.
But that probably facilitates his ability to, we think, to do this.
Yeah.
Because he needs to do it. So if that's a vehicle that makes that happen now.
It's just because what the council will have to do then is have a conversation of, are they allowed, because capital reserve funds have specific
Yeah.
written purposes into them from the warrant. If this falls outside of that purpose, they can't actually expend it for something outside the purpose.
So we don't know
So we'll
what
look
that's.
at the purpose, we have that language for the warrant article.
Yeah, I
Establish that,
feel like we need to communicate to the town manager that,
well, that should be a recommendation.
as a recommendation,
Yeah.
that we put this into here, but we think it really should go before the voters to start a capital reserve fund for police facilities.
I think it's a good
I
recommendation.
think that sounds like a great idea. I mean, because ultimately that's what we're looking to do. And I understand what you're saying, that it could get, miscommunicated, or they could
Yeah.
say that, no, that's not what that's for. So ultimately that's what we're looking for.
And ultimately, you're gonna have to spend money.
Right,
Why not start saving money in the capital reserve fund?
Yeah.
the study's going to tell you where you're heading,
Yeah.
but ultimately it is going to be an expenditure.
Right.
And I think, and maybe somebody has more expertise than I do, but I think that bringing somebody in to make that assessment
Oh,
is
no, I
probably
think
the
it's
best. Because ultimately, when I think big picture, I think the location is the perfect location, and if there's any way to put something there, you know, move us, put something back there, that would be great. But somebody's probably gonna have a way to say, hey, we can either do this here, we can't do it here, or whatever.
There's no way the town engineer could help with that.
Well, she just got on board, and it's something we wanna.
It's like a police department, something that's so specific in the design that the general engineer would.
I do think
I
that
wouldn't trust the town, and no offense, I don't know her, but like, so
I think-
go to the wastewater facility.
I think it'd be
necessarily.
better use,
gonna need an
better use,
architect.
yeah.
You're gonna need an architect.
I think there's gonna have to be a team of people,
The
and
town
I,
engineer is not. She can work with it, but it's gonna be.
yeah, she might be able to build us a building, but looking at specifics of why we need things, where we need them, you know.
Specifically for police stations. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
probably a niche.
Is there, like, should we like have a motion and pass something, like suggesting that this month, that town council, town manager look into like having a warrant to start a.
I think that should come at the end. So I think
Please don't let us forget.
written down. So I think at the last meeting before we sent it to the town manager,
Yeah.
all those recommendations should come out.
Right.
Motion's made at that meeting.
Sorted. Anything else?
Because there could be more discussion too.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
No, glad that I can clear up a few things. Are you guys good with me? Or?
Yeah,
good.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a fantastic evening.
All right, you as well.
And thank you again for everything.
No, I appreciate what you had to say. Thank you.
Actually, should take care of those files for you.
Yeah.
You do want your phone.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'd have been back in 10 minutes.
Take care. Have a good
Thanks.
one. All right, Sean. Do we have the list of questions that we have?
Yeah, I think the main question was about ratepayers.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Capital reserve.
Capital reserve.
it might have been more like a finance director question, but you probably know as well. Like,
I know all the finances of the water and sewer.
So when we say, yes, we're putting this money into capital reserve, or we're raising and appropriating this money from capital reserve, where is that coming from? Is it coming from
So,
taxpayers, or does it go into the rates?
so let's be clear.
Yeah.
The water customers, or the
Yeah.
people that receive a water bill,
Yep.
are the ones that pay for it.
Okay, there we go.
No taxpayers comes out of taxpayer money.
So
For the
totally
wastewater,
separate from that.
yeah,
So your capital reserve is funded from the enterprise funds?
correct.
100%.
100%.
You answered like 90% of our questions.
Thanks.
Hold on, I'm trying to find his stuff. What page was it?
Page.
There we go, it's wastewater. Yeah.
So I separated out.
Even the vehicles, Sean?
Everything.
Okay. There was also a question on, I don't remember like the questions that the group had. So there was a question on the clarifier covers.
Yes.
So there's a balance,
We actually put money in it before,
yeah, there's 90K in there.
but now they increased the cost of it. So,
Okay.
because of COVID and everything that has to deal with that.
Yeah, so that's it.
And I estimated on the 90,000, it was a 3-year payback, so it'll probably be like more like a 5-year payback.
Sean, I guess sorry, go
Page
ahead.
17, is it page 17?
17.
Could clarify.
Yep. I think the other question was more about, we see your, like, balances, right? Which are
Yeah.
like big balances, right? Like well, not the water surplus, it's a $2 balance, but the capital reserve and the sewer capital reserve. And then but when we see the balances in capital reserve fund on the sheets,
Yeah,
they are lower numbers that I assume aggregates into this, it just adds up into the numbers that we have here. For example, wastewater treatment, you have multiple, that's a bad one, you have multiple pages of that one.
so what you're trying to say is what I have for totals in here don't add up to the totals that are in the fund. Is that what you're asking for?
I think is a representation of what you itemize the
Yeah.
aggregate of the total balance.
It is not the total balance what's in the fund, the aggregate. So what we're trying to say, I guess is what you're saying, is if I added up all those sheets, what's in the balances, would that equal the total that's in the
total
fund
is
balance?
The capital reserve balance.
Yeah, it would not, because there's some money that was put aside in previous years for other things.
Okay.
And one of them is for a garage for the water and sewer department.
Okay.
Because if you actually look at it, we actually have pumps, we have equipment everywhere. And if you actually look at the water department, we've moved the water department out of the old water plant, because the water plant's gonna be gone and used for something else. And actually, all we have for the water department for buildings is wells and a water treatment plant. There's no storage whatsoever.
Holy.
So we've actually been designing a storage facility, and it's almost done. We've actually put it on hold because of COVID. The prices have gone up on building supplies. They're starting to drop, so now we're looking at possibly starting to move on that.
So there's also a capital improvement plan that you have, that you've been putting money aside, that you're not at this year, but
So there's actually, I got a breakdown of everything, of where everything is.
so that, I would love you and Amy to have a conversation, because that sheet there, which I think would be great for us to have too, like how all those projects break down into your total work,
Yeah, and
like, is I think like a very coherent way to look at the totality of your capital reserve funds
and it's
against your plans.
and it's hard because things have moved, and because we're doing the thickener project, which is coming out of capital reserve, and the reason all of a sudden that jumped to the front is because it's actually going to pay for itself, and it's going to save the ratepayers money.
Right.
So it's kind of like a moving, there's money set aside in here, but it kind of moves and evolves according to what the needs. And the other thing, the next thing we're looking at doing is doing a septage receiving station. Because this past year, people have started to bring septage to our plant, which we haven't had before. In the first 6 months, we've made $90,000. The problem with that is that all that traffic is going down through the park to get to that. So we kind of want to move it up to the wastewater treatment plant. We're on pace to make $200,000 in septic receiving. But the residents are not very happy down in the park. So
Wouldn't
right
think so.
now, we actually have a pilot unit at the wastewater treatment plant that we're going to be running. We're started to run today. It's going to be running for 2 weeks to test out this equipment. I've also drawn up using existing infrastructure on buying this and putting it in and using existing infrastructure, so it would much lower the cost. So it's using some of the old tanks from the old plant.
So I think it's all fantastic.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to for me is, I don't know if that's the water or sewer one there.
It's both.
It's okay. So
It's both.
but like you have 639K in the water capital reserve right now,
Yep.
but what we got is a breakdown according to like we don't.
Yeah, I
you
know.
have
I
you
got
have
you.
a master plan of how you're spending that. That's one thing against like 4 different CIP
Yeah, I got you.
plan,
Yep.
which I feel like is a very coherent way of managing the capital reserve.
It is.
And it feels like, and there's nothing against any other department, but I don't think every department mirrors that.
No.
Correct. They do it in different ways. They have
Yeah.
different approaches to capital reserve.
I feel like we need a unified approach that like, especially when, so like look at police, right? He had police vehicles, he has dispatch equipment, we're talking about starting a building one. He just can manage one plan for each of those capital reserve funds. Sean has one capital reserve fund for water and has to manage like 4 different funds against that and reprioritize.
As I talked to the planner earlier today, you got to kind of have a vision, and make that plan happen. It's very difficult for me to do this plan. It's getting easier and easier. The reason it's difficult is because my infrastructure is so old. I mean, if you look at, I have 4 miles of 1895 water main. I have pump stations that I haven't touched since the last time I touched a pump station was in 2000. And the reason for that is because the wastewater plant has dominated all the work. And why is that? Because the EPA dictates what comes out of that effluent pipe. So you're tied to trying to work on the plant the most when you're trying to get out into the system. The other thing that's working on the wastewater system is I have a $100,000 grant to look at the collection system. That's my next piece. Once we look at the collection system, you're gonna see a big plan on how we tackle the collection system, how we meet those goals without putting it so onerous on the ratepayer that they can't pay it. So we really have to look at how we can bite it off into pieces.
So 639, where's that number you just mentioned?
So in your pack, which actually, it's a great point. There are differences between the sheet we got last.
Yeah, it's not, that's not right.
Yeah.
And.
I'm gonna tell you that number's not.
639, sorry, was the 21 balance. The remaining balance right now should be set like in water, 730,064.26.
Okay,
Whereas
but
last week we
this thing
got
says 844. So
Right.
is that not the right
Yeah,
number?
yeah,
That's-
844 was, I believe, on the first of the year, on July
That's
1st.
July 1st, right?
Yes, and I've spent some money since then. Mine's not totally updated
Okay.
either.
Yeah,
So it's somewhat less than
This is
that.
from
Yes.
finance. This is the latest.
This is the
financial
current one as of like today.
from no one. So I don't have access to those numbers.
Okay.
This is the last time it was done. So July 1, 2022. This is what the balance was.
Okay.
And
And that's,
Oh, there we go.
that's
Sorry.
this one, right? Is that what we're talking about?
correct.
Okay.
That's 844,799.
Yes.
All right. So, okay. So what was this one?
That's for
It was
water.
Like 630.22 and then 71.22.
Right. So what I understood at the last meeting was we're kind of doing comparison and contrast.
Okay.
So I gave you both. So I gave you last year's and this year's.
Okay.
So the one that says 7/1/2022 is the most recent.
Okay.
That was 844.
That was 844
Right.
for the water,
Yes.
and it's 1.2,
Yes.
1.3 million.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking at the last year's sheet.
Yep.
But you, like for that 844, you have a plan, like based on you have multiple plans that aggregate into that 844.
I have, if you look at it, it's very short. There's like 300,000 for the water tower.
Mhm.
There's 200,000 for the storage garage,
Yep.
which makes up a $500,000. Then I have 110,557 for trucks. And then when you go down, so that's dedicated CIP. There is actually some undedicated CIP, and what's that for is for the water projects. There's some things that are happening. For example, on the Tucker Well project, rural development will not pay for portions of that project, and we're starting to pull some of that money out to pay for those pieces. We also pulled out $40,000 last night because we got 50% grant money to take care of energy, 50% matching grant. So that 40,000 is going towards that. So there are some real small projects that are happening that are coming against that balance.
So I suppose, so I guess it's like two things for me out of this. One, there are other capital improvement plans that he might not be requesting money for. This is a process for us.
Correct, yeah,
I think.
right.
That he's not requesting money for part of that 844. So like the garage plan, even if there was like zero being requested this year, knowing that that is a piece of the 844 would help us understand the totality of the water
What's
department
being requested.
plan.
Yep. So I think what you're driving at is having a universal document that systematically shows everything, so for this committee to see, even if there's no request.
So what I should do is
At
probably,
least per fund, right?
when-
What are the plans
Exactly.
against the
so
fund? Yeah.
what it should happen is when I fill out these other forms for you, I should fill out a cover sheet that has this on
I think what we need to do is create a better document.
it. But you get what I'm saying. If I would have included the cover sheet, yeah.
That would have been
You-
like.
you would've got it,
comic
yeah.
books, Right, which
Yep.
I think that's another comment we had last time, that some of these narratives are more, not yours, but
Right.
robust than others.
Right. So yeah, I think that's better. Instead of trying to fit it in one cell in an Excel document,
And-
you have a narrative.
And as I talked to the planner earlier today, I really think it would be beneficial if we had meetings throughout the year where I actually give presentations on the entire water and sewer system.
I think it would be fantastic if through the year, again, we're not talking about a ton of meetings, but we got to deeply understand what the plans are against the capital reserve fund. So when it comes to budget season, it's more of like okay, this is in alignment with the plan, or this is out of alignment.
And
with the plan.
not only that, for you
Projects too.
to understand the needs of the entire water and sewer system, because people don't realize how big it is.
Right.
There's 28 miles of water, water main, 2,200 connections. I mean, there's a lot out there.
That's why you don't know where the leak is.
I
Right?
know, I was about to ask. Did you find it?
No.
So in a modern system that was updated, you'd have some sense or a way to figure it out, no?
No. So what it is, and it's happened before. There's a leak out somewhere because, and the reason I know it is because it was raining and the water consumption was up. So I basically had to wait a few days and get an average and see what's happening. Of course, in the rain, it's hard to find a water break as well. But we've gone to all the areas where we thought it could be. We've also traveled all the roads and looked for it, and nothing. And this has happened before. And we're hoping something will show up. What's going to happen on Monday night, we'll be out in the middle of the night with listening devices on hydrants when nobody's using water. Because when nobody's using water, if you put a listening device on a hydrant and you hear something, you know you're getting close. So we're going to try and systematically find it. It's not a huge leak. It's about 90 gallons a minute. It's not like the one.
Sounds like a lot.
That sounds a lot.
Sounds like, yeah.
The one last Sunday was 500 gallons a minute when it blew. So I mean, you watch the water tower go boom. So I mean, hopefully we can find it. It's not something I'm happy at. Right now it's tough because I only have 2 wells online right now. The other 2 are being worked on. So it is a little stressful, but yeah.
This is totally, I don't want to take, I know we have a lot to talk about, but like, I was around for all the wastewater treatment, like, stuff, right? Like, and it did, I don't think we talked about water almost at all. We were only talking about money towards, and I totally get the intention that we had in fixing the wastewater. I mean, we also were required to legally.
Yeah.
But like, secondary and tertiary consequences of like, it causes us, or maybe other communities too, just pay less attention to water, to pay attention to.
And you were part of the water treatment plant, the blending,
Yeah.
the last piece,
Yeah.
which now we had to level it, which was tough on the water users, very tough. But that point being said, the council wanted to push the water stuff forward, and we're doing about $15 million worth of work, which is going to solve all the water supply issues, which is big for this town for the next 20 years.
So I get just a quick question.
Yep,
5, 6, 7 years ago,
yep,
when I first served on the committee,
yep.
there was, I'll call piping, for lack of a better way, the 1800s.
Yes,
And the fact that you have done the work you've done, keeping that in, the fact that he started with that, you have done an outstanding job.
thank you.
I just thought I'd let you know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, please.
So we just spent our first meeting being like, there's probably things we can approve right away, just looking at it. There were more questions that I think I had anticipated, so apologize for that. But what was in my mind when I thought about who has this locked down and actually has like I was thinking about like your water and wastewater capital improvement plans and how detailed and robust they are. So if we like can find a way to like, again, like internally share best practices for how people who have multiple plans against a single fund. It's so easy when you have one plan against one fund, but when there's multiple plans against a fund, it would like it'd be fantastic if we were all managing things that way. And we saw that comprehensive plan at this level.
I think that's achievable.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So do we have enough now to, go back to these, or?
How do people feel?
I feel like, I think the big question was like, is the capital reserve kind of impacting ratepayers or taxpayers? And I think that's answered now, so.
I think we've answered that, yeah. That
That
was our
makes it a
biggest
lot
question.
easier for me.
A lot
Yeah.
easier, yeah. All right. Where do we want to start?
Thank you, Sean.
Sean, thanks so much.
No, anytime you guys want anything, I'm more than welcome to share it.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely circle back after this process to actually start the process of getting to know the water system, wastewater system better.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Great,
Thank you.
great job, thank
Good
you.
luck with the listening devices.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, when I joined the budget committee, they set up, the former chairman set up tours, so I was able to go there and have him walk us through this whole thing, which is, so valuable,
It's like really fantastic.
and it's impressive.
Again, after our budget rush right now, if like this group could do it, right? Like I've been in it, right? Like, but
Yeah.
it's been a few years.
Same thing with police, you know, I think we
Yeah.
both, going through that police station and seeing the inadequacy, like, I'm sitting here, like, he needs that money now
Yeah.
to do that
Yeah.
study,
I
He
agree.
wasn't kidding about those size of the walls. Like he just like shows like, yeah, so 2 people can fit in here, and if we hire like more female officers, it's like we don't know where to put them.
Right.
Yeah, he's a humble guy, right? He
Yeah.
undersold, I think, like that.
Yeah, yeah, he was not kidding at all.
And I think, you know, too, I think we had talked about, there's so many demands people are looking at, like, you know, for design and where we need to go. If we can find one person that can assist with that whole thought process, back to the idea of the master plan and where we want to be able to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, getting like the one company to like review all the buildings instead of getting a separate person to review each building.
You know, like we have a lawyer on retainer, right? Like,
Yeah, well, that's my thought, right? And then they'll be familiar with the town, they'll be familiar with how things work. I think that makes a whole lot of sense.
So kind of like a consultant design engineer on retainer.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be like wastewater has different like types
Right.
of people, right? Pearson, the water sprays.
He's gonna find the right firm that has everything.
Right, but that's be a firm that does towns. There has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I participated in the development and building of a police station in another town. It's a very unique expertise. You gotta hire an architect that knows that, understands the regulations, understands the needs. It's a pretty involved process. Like, I think what he needs is somebody to say, hey, can we expand this building? Like, is it possible to take that site he has and do something with it? I think that's pretty more generic. But if it's a new station, it's a whole nother deal. Yeah.
But the idea, I think, when we get back to our recommendations at the end of all of this, is like, is there some sort of like relationship with some firm that does a lot of municipal architecture?
Yeah.
There has to be somebody that specializes in that.
I thought relationship. I don't think like a formal one with Wright Pierce though for like well a decade and a
Yeah.
half over like all of the water stuff.
Yep. No, I think that would make sense.
All right.
Explore.
So we are at, if we went first,
16.
page
16?
16 or 10? Where are we gonna go? Page 10 starts wastewater. I think page 16 starts water.
Let's
Start
start at 10.
You're talking the pump house, right?
Yeah, the pump house is on the page 16, and
It starts WW1.
Yeah, we start at page 10. That's
Wastewater
Okay.
one.
yeah. So this is Creighton Street pump station.
Right, WW1.
I will accept a motion for the proposed funding of 51,504 with a code of
Okay. Yeah. No.
with a code of N.
I think
necessary.
necessary. Yeah.
Do you want to make that motion or?
I will make the motion for that with a code of N for, what was it again?
Creighton,
It's the
yeah.
Creighton Street
51,504.
pumping station.
51,504
WW1.
and for WW1, the Creighton Street pumping station.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Accept the motion on WW2, which is the wastewater trucks.
I can make that motion. So the motion is to approve, it's 21,878?
Yeah.
Yeah, 21,878 for trucks for the wastewater department.
With a designation of.
N,
And
I think all of these are N probably, right?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
just a quick
Yeah.
question though.
Discussion.
So, only because this is all you're hearing about now is the electronic vehicles. We're making this assumption based on traditional vehicles, correct?
As of right now, yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yep.
So I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I remember Pete Jordan saying that because there's a long waiting list for electronic vehicles at this, well, at least for police vehicles, so I think it's still probably.
Yeah.
And it's a good point, though, that somewhere around 28, 29 is probably a very different discussion on vehicle types.
100%.
Funny now, but we have to have a basis of
I
estimate.
think our
Yeah.
target's 2035.
2035?
That's when we should probably target more, because I think who knows what's going to change in New Hampshire, but California has mandated all electrical vehicles will be in 2035. You
It'd
can
be
sell.
after that now.
Well, they're mandating no gas vehicles sold in 4 years in California.
Right. So that's going to be a trend center.
Yeah.
And,
But again,
We'll see what happens out there.
right, and the feeling is 17 other states will follow, but we won't be one of them.
No, we won't be one of them, but I think
Live
we
for your
should.
die, my friend.
But you're going to see a lot more in the market. So it's more like targeting those, and do they make sense for the community?
it's just the pricing
More
mechanism.
electric cars in the market, probably less gas cars in the market, because they're going to be like, okay, we're not selling this many anymore to go 17.
California is the 7th largest business market in the world. So when they say no gas vehicles in 4 years, that's going to tweak the market.
But just remember though too, they can't plug them in till after 9 o'clock, and they can't run their
They're having a lot of issues
dishwashers.
with it right now.
Sure.
Exactly.
Right, they're about to go rolling blackouts because of the
blackouts.
heat.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
I guess my
Not
point
quite
is,
yet.
this is
They
probably
haven't
the trend
started
we're going
yet. Like
towards.
tonight.
Yeah.
So we should start thinking about that.
Yeah, that-
Especially if we want to, if the town wants to, achieve some kind of climate resiliency or, just sustainability.
So,
But for now.
yep, so second,
Any discussion? We had any more discussion?
no,
Right, all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. WW3.
3.1.
Well,
So
so are we
it's
doing
it's
all
three,
together?
all together. It was for. to
So
break it
the
up.
challenge is that each sheet has a different number. What is the aggregate of WW3, which is their wastewater treatment? There's 4 of them, right?
Yeah, there's 4 pages.
What is the total aggregate we would have approved for a wastewater
add it
treatment
up.
facility?
let's see,
Yeah, add it up.
58, 60, 70,
I do want to know.
about 133.
Actually, wait.
Like, this is the level of this is
Yeah.
what I was talking about Sean.
These
the level
seem
of
like-
he knows each piece of equipment when it's going to need to be replaced, each sub piece,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and is planning for it in this. That's like,
So let me. So these seems like different projects.
well, they're all wastewater treatment facilities.
Correct.
They're all wastewater
But you look at
treatment
the capital
facility.
balance for each one, 2, 5, 6. One's 99,000. So on 3.2, 99,000.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Look, so here,
Yeah. This is
what page?
so the first one is buildings, the maintenance building and dewatering building.
Yeah.
So
The
I'm,
second page is
so-
control building.
Yeah.
The third
Okay.
page is site various wastewater treatment facility, and so is the 4th page.
So
So the thing is this though, we are voting to put it in the fund.
fund. Yep. So it's the
So we can
aggregate.
do it in aggregate, because it's all going to, it's not like it's different capital
Right.
reserve funds.
Yep. So let me just add it up really quickly. So we got 53,222 on page 1. Plus 19,962 plus 51,350 plus 6,500. Is that it? And I think that's it.
That's it for
So
3.
that's $131,034. That's what I got. Anyone wants to double check my math?
Do you want someone to double check your math? That's my question.
No, it's everything's accurate. What I typed in.
it's fine.
So $131,034.
Yep. Yes.
So I'll accept a motion on wastewater treatment facility funding for their wastewater treatment, capital reserve fund, or sewer.
I'll make a motion on the water treatment facility. 131,000, class N.
31,034, right?
Yes.
34.
Correct.
Sorry.
Is there a second?
There's a second. We should note that that's the combination of
All the
3.1, 2,
facilities
3, and 4.
projects.
The wastewater facility projects.
Yep.
It's, 3.1 through 3.4.
Correct.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? of the, wait, there's more and more.
Pump
wastewater.
station.
Pump station. So there's different pump stations. Come from the enterprise
Is that,
fund.
is that page
This is
16?
page 16.
Yeah.
Pump station, and then there's a clarifier.
Yep.
Covers.
So I'll accept the motion on wastewater for the pump station project.
So I can make the motion to approve $200,000 for pump station improvements.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Wastewater 5, secondary clarifier cover. Funding what was not there because of the COVID cost increases.
I thought he got them last year, I don't know what happened.
Price went up, so we had to.
Yeah,
make a little more money.
Yeah, I think they hesitate.
Yeah.
I wanted to save them the $30,000, $35,000 a year to hire somebody to stir it.
Couldn't pay me enough to do that. So I'll accept a motion on wastewater 5.
I'll make a motion on the secondary clarifier covers for 50,000 class of this D.
He's asking, is D, yep.
Is there a second?
One second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. On the water. Water 1, the
McIntosh
Rush
Road.
Well.
Yep.
Oh,
I'll accept the motion on water 1.
I'll make a motion on water 1 for $9,249. Let's say the class, what is it?
Doesn't, but
I'm gonna say N?
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we need pump stations.
Yes.
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. This is why we had all that discussion on Tuesday nights. I will accept the motion on water 2.
I can make a motion on water 2. Water 2 is trucks.
Yes.
$14,735 for trucks, which I would say is necessary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
3.12.
I'll do the adding.
Yeah, how many pages are there of
It's just 2.
water equipment?
2.
2 pages.
Yep. So we got 64,586 on page 1. This is for water treatment plant equipment, and then it's equipment and vehicles, and then one is 13,038 with a grand total of 77,669.
Can you say that one more time? 77?
77669.
I will accept a motion on water treatment plant equipment, pages 1 and 2, W 3.1 and 3.2.
I'll make a motion for 77,659 for W 3.1 and for.
69.
69.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yep.
69.
okay. And that's
So
an N.
77,669,
660.
thank you. For the water treatment plant equipment, plant 1 and plant 2.
Add an N.
I'm sorry?
An N.
Necessary code.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said, is that the end? I'm like,
No.
yeah. And yes,
Sorry,
sorry.
And I'll second.
I haven't done it enough.
You're always seconding things.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right.
Water tower.
Water tower.
Yahoo!
Accept the motion on the water tower.
I'll make a motion on the water tower for $, class N.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Is it water and sewer?
Water and sewer.
And now the rec center, which we still need to talk to them.
Yeah. So the rest, library, DPW, and rec will be next week.
Okay, next week?
Yeah, I'm trying. So they
Okay.
said, I got commission from library and DPW.
Okay.
I just wait on Amy.
And how about fire? Don't we have
He's a
questions?
DPW on fire.
Oh, it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
What about this one, the Shanda Park Living Shoreline?
Oh, and there's also Sam Kenny will be coming in too from conservation and Riverfront Advisory Committee.
okay. So that's gonna be Shannon Park and the Moonlight Brook.
Correct.
Culvert.
That's correct. Yep.
But the questions that we had, they've already been given?
I've already submitted them to them,
Perfect.
so they
Good.
they're well aware.
Okay, good.
So the Heron Point took other business?
Yeah. Yep.
So one, listed here as others, Heron Point Sanctuary Bridge. Is there actually a capital reserve fund
No.
for that?
No.
All right,
So
so
I just put it-
everything in this other is there actually is no fund for.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Is that-
there was a question on, is there an opportunity for the culvert, say, request to put that under something?
Okay.
For instance, stormwater capital reserve fund.
Okay.
So we'll look into that. The other alternative is a recommendation from this committee to establish a new capital reserve fund,
Okay.
or not.
So the other thing that I've written Bart about, and that
Yep.
I noticed that there were a bunch of capital reserve funds. The veterans one caught my eye because it's been on the committee. That there was no request from any multiple other ones like cemetery, the 300th anniversary celebration. There's just some that we just didn't get requests from. So have we reached out to those people?
So I got technology they said that they didn't have enough that met the threshold for the capital reserve fund, which is $50,000, I think, according to.
But they have a $40,000 balance in it, and they got $20,000 last year.
Yeah,
What
that's
was that a
true.
piece of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cemetery group might have either disbanded or hasn't met in a long time.
I mean, is that right? Mike Holder, I think, is the chair.
I talked to the finance director who does the technology. He also does that. He didn't have any requests right now for us to consider, so he didn't submit anything. He was notified.
So,
I guess it's a good thing that they're not asking us for money, so.
yeah,
Right.
I guess my question is why they asked for 20K last year if they don't have a plan that they're actually spending money on.
Well, there had to be a reason they asked for it last year.
Yeah. Right.
And last year, I think it was for wiring, rewiring.
Yeah, he showed, last year there were pictures of
Yeah.
his wiring closets were spaghetti. It was awful. It was
So
awful.
we funded it, and is it expended in the same year?
I don't think it has been. Do you have the 7-1?
I'm looking at 7-1 right now.
Yeah. And technology
The 20K
is
was
40.
put in?
Still there. So and there was no resolutions yet.
Yeah, so
Nothing's been done yet.
But the phones are new, are they not?
They are.
Yeah, so that would have been part, out of the technology, I would think, right?
I think so. I have to look into that.
Okay.
I don't have that answer. I don't know if that was a general
Okay.
fund item or it came out of. Let me see last year. Technology, and in the previous year there was nothing. There was only. Oh yeah, so technology and fiscal year 21-22, they spent $3,998. There was a resolution for that. If you look at the 6/30/2022, yeah.
Okay,
So that could have been the phones.
okay.
Yeah. I have to look at that back at the resolution, see what I could have done. Again, town clock. I'm not sure who to contact for town clock. You know, trust fund is different.
So-
The dam capital reserve, Cowan Dam, that's no longer,
It's not active.
active. Cable TV, I think that would be Tim downstairs, but I have to double check. Or could it be Bill? Downtown TIF, that's different. Reevaluation.
Yeah.
Might have been disbanded, I'm not sure. Reevaluation.
So, I mean, the reevaluation is because we have to do a reevaluation
right.
every so often, and we want to save money for that. So it, like, what did we put in last year? $12?
12.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Steve, because Steve
Yeah.
ultimately is the one that, right?
Right.
Is the council, so
Yeah.
like, what was that about?
And
What's the
downtown.
dollar into the
I
health
think-
trust?
And I think downtown infrastructure is trust, too, not capital reserve.
So the Veterans Memorial has both a trust and a capital reserve fund. They're two separate funds.
But,
This is the capital reserve fund.
yeah. It'd be nice to kind of show both, but so you just know where they stand. We'll do that. Yeah. So again, I didn't know who to contract for the veteran, so I will have to do that.
Yeah, so it's Dave Wade.
Dave Wade. Okay.
And I'm looking at other ones here, like compensated absence.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think for this committee, because I feel that's more of a trust than a capital reserve. So
Oh, I think it is a
'Cause-
capital reserve fund. Though.
right.
These are reserve overviews here. So this is money that is in the capital reserve funds. And that was established as a
Yeah.
capital reserve fund maybe about 7 years ago.
I'll have to check with finance, just so I understand the different accounts and their makeup.
Okay.
Yeah, and see exactly if that's something this committee can act on, like to fill or make recommendations, or are we just looking at like buildings, infrastructure, instead of compensated apps,
Yeah.
internal,
So we are the
Human resources.
capital improvement plan committee, which looks at capital improvements,
Right.
not the capital reserve fund maintainer.
Right. So like we're looking at the town in general physical assets mostly, studies as well.
Yeah.
Items related to improving the tangible assets of the town. And, different mechanisms that achieve that end goal. For instance, studies.
Okay. I just think it would be nice to get clarity on like, hey, here are the other capital reserve funds that we are not responsible for. You know what I mean?
I can do that for the next meeting, yeah. That's, that'd be helpful.
And do we get to speak to the town manager as part of this process at all, or he's not part of it?
I've requested for him the buildings, like buildings and grounds. So I'm still waiting on those. I'm not sure if we'll get them in time, but I think this committee can ask. We still have the fire question.
Yeah.
So
the
I know.
lease-
I think that
Yeah.
came up last night.
Yes, it did, and Steve gave an answer. 1 sec. I wrote down when he wrote it. It said it just because he speaking real quick. But if you go back on the town meeting at 7:19, he answers the question. Sorry. On leasing, yes. Sorry. This is from when I was a reporter and someone was talking too fast. and I knew the-
answer generally?
Generally, what was it? Technically, they should not, but there's some like twisty logic where it makes sense. Is the best way I got
I
it.
generally don't like twisty logic.
Yeah.
Or simply, I was just not able to follow. This is not quite my area, so. But he had an answer right on the bat, so.
So we can go
Yeah.
follow up.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
we'll have that answer.
Like I said, when I can't write it down fast enough, I just write where it is in the record, so I can just.
So if we feel a capital reserve fund is not being adequately funded, given the requests that we see, it's not our purview to, we can make a recommendation.
But I think all we do is make recommendations.
Right.
Like we have very little like authority as a committee.
It's
but-
only recommendations.
Like, it looks like where the budget committee last year changed the budget for $50,000 for the capital reserve for the fire truck. I don't think it was put into that capital reserve.
I think it might have been. I just
Doesn't
have to
show
check.
on these sheets.
Oh, okay.
So Right, exactly. So the budget committee said, here's $50,000 more, we'd like to go in the capital reserve, but what the budget committee can do is add to the bottom line, so what it became was,
And we were told at the time, like, they could take that money and decide to do something totally different with it.
but if it does feel to me that we need to have a conversation with the town manager. Because ultimately, he's the one who takes our recommendations and then puts it into proposals for the council. Of course, the council can edit his proposals, but I think that generally his proposals are what go through. So him understanding our logic behind our recommendations, I think might help engender our recommendations going into his recommendation to the council vice something else.
Yeah,
We should have a strong working relationship with the town manager, I guess.
I think what we can do, would you like that prior to making your recommendations or after making your recommendations?
Well, we have a recommendation from the fire for $50,000, but what we're seeing in front of us is a projection which, first of all, goes out beyond the 6 years. It's shows a lump in the plan in the future, which would argue that we're underfunding it now. I guess, is that worthy of a discussion? Because it's the leasing, but it's the impact of the leasing on the CIP.
I would just again say, just check the meeting minute, maybe that, like, again, I'm sorry I couldn't write, for some reason I just didn't hear
So
it.
how would I see that?
Like online.
Oh yeah, just online, just town council meeting, when it's at 7:19, I wrote down the time when he wrote it was at 7:19.
Okay, yeah, I'll go look at that.
7:19 p.m.
Yep,
19 minutes.
7
7:19.
minutes and
19.
7 minutes and
No,
19
no,
seconds.
it was at
7:19.
7:19 o'clock.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Right, okay.
Well,
Which
Because I never know,
meeting starts at 7, all right?
yeah, meeting starts at 7, so it's 19 minutes.
into it.
no, but it, well, sometimes that still picture runs for about 5 or 6 minutes,
Okay.
so.
It's all around there.
Yeah,
So for example,
Beginning of it
yeah.
somewhere.
yeah, that's why I don't usually do the, yeah, but it tells me roughly
Yeah.
when do they start the meeting, 19 minutes in.
But, sorry.
Planning board is used to those kinds of.
No, I was gonna say, if we were horribly, let's just say, I'm not saying this, but if we were horribly uncomfortable with this approach, this leasing approach, I mean, in theory, we could not approve that CIP. Which doesn't mean it's-
recommend it, yeah.
We could, so that means we don't approve it, but then it could still happen because
So-
council could and town manager.
Statutorily, we recommend what to put into capital reserves. What about the plans themselves? What statutory authority do we have over the plan?
The plan, can you elaborate on the plan? What do you mean?
Like, I mean, so for every capital reserve fund, there has to be at least if not multiple, capital reserve plans that detail how the capital reserve fund is going to be expended. Like, here's what we plan to do with it, not the intent. The intent comes out of the warrant.
Right.
How they plan to expend that money, like what it is for, what it's going to go against. Right now, these are our capital improvement plans, which I think are really lacking, right?
Mhm.
These are not plans, it's a spreadsheet and like a paragraph at best. But as the capital improvement committee, or capital improvement plan committee, like, do we have any statutory authority over the like yaying or naying of the plan? We might not be able to totally determine how, like, I have to dig into the RSAs more, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've been living in ed RSAs for a while, I have to
Yeah.
get back into it.
So I don't have that answer too, but my sense is that the warrant article drives, okay, what
Purpose.
the purpose. So if that purpose is vague, then in that plan, you can probably use that money for wherever it is for.
Right, I guess I don't even recall the RSA, but the RSA that establishes us as a committee.
Well, it comes from the master plan. So the master plan allows for this committee to exist. If you have a municipality has a master plan, then two things can happen. One, you can set up a CIP committee, and if you set up a CIP committee, then you can have impact fees. So theoretically, you have a master plan, and you need to maintain, that plan sets out how to build out the town. through those visioning and goals, CIP committee kind of make sure that plan is being enacted upon by the municipal departments or other committees.
Right.
Saying, this is what we need in order to achieve
So,
the goals of the master plan.
so, two things. One, we should have spent more time earlier on this summer getting very deep into the master plan. Because right now, not one of our conversations has been around how is this supported by the master plan?
Right.
How is the master plan driving our prioritization? Which leads to the conversation like rec, right? Just because it happens to be open.
Yeah.
If we were deeply entrenched in the master plan, I think I actually could, without Amy, just with what Amy has provided, probably more robust would be helpful though. Like, and this is nothing against Amy, it's just like,
Well, I think it's
I'd
the
be able to
creature
say,
of the document almost, like the
is-
narrative. you
yeah,
know?
is this in support of our master plan right now? And it'd be pretty clear which ones are and which ones are not. And it, like,
No, that's just me clear my throat.
okay,
Sorry.
please stop me.
No, not at all.
It just, ultimately though, right, so like if we said something is not in support of the master plan, if we were just like, you're trying to like, I don't know, like Statue of General Grant up here or something, I don't know, like that, like we're like, why the master plan doesn't want that, like that, what statutory, not the master plan, statutory in RSA's authority does the committee have to say, we do not believe that is part in support of the master plan and should not be in a CIP plan in this community. Does it have any, or are we
Well, I think
totally ministerial?
it's,
Like,
yeah, it's just
perform.
recommendations. We say, we don't think this aligns with the master plan, the goals of the master plan, and so we're gonna give this the letter grade is D for desirable.
if that comes out of like our policy, that doesn't come out of RSA.
Right, but RSA does have a designation of letters, so it can be changed a little bit for each community.
Yeah.
But it sets out saying you will give a grade.
And we can also just vote to not recommend it if we don't think it's right.
Right, so
Yeah,
you say, you make a recommendation,
Yeah.
0, go into account for that project.
A note for next year. It would be fantastic. We got DTC on retainer.
Yep.
If we just had them come in to the new committee, whoever it is, or like, who knows who's gonna be sitting up here. But this is like one of the few committees that every year is almost entirely reconstituted. And got just a like, here's what the RSA say about, like, here is the statutory authority, here's the authority, here is what you can and cannot do. Like, I recognize you gave us the packet and we had that conversation here, but like, I have some like legal questions about like the authority of this committee right now
Okay.
that just feel like I wouldn't expect anyone here to be able to answer those, right?
But to your point, let's go back for a quick second, and we say that each department head has a master plan.
Capital
No,
improvement plan.
capital improvement.
Well, but should that, to your point though, I'm thinking the two words or statements could mirror one another, meaning that master plan and capital plan should mirror the goals and
These should support that.
aspirations.
These
That,
absolutely
100%.
support that.
So I think before they even get here, they have to document that and say, yep, based upon the master plan of X, Y, and Z, here's my X, Y, and Z.
So the master,
Is that what you're actually
Totally
saying?
right, like in support, well, I'd say two things. One, I'm wondering what our statutory authority is. Two, about the plan. I know we can't control the budget, we don't
Right.
recommend that, but about the plan. Because I think what we don't have here right now, what we have here are a series of department wish lists, some of which are more robust than others as to what they want to accomplish. What I don't have here is what a long-term operationalization of our master plan
Right.
via capital improvement plans that aggregate into supporting our master plan and have associated capital reserve fund building plans to fund those things. It doesn't, like, I really find the phrase trite, but it doesn't tick and die. These feel independent as opposed to cohesive as a supporting, how are we gonna operationalize the master plan in this community? Does that make sense? Or am
that
I
makes
clear?
sense.
So,
do you have,
quick question.
Yeah.
How many years ago were you and I on the
I feel like we had
board
the same
together?
conversation.
Yeah, but that was like that's like almost
That
10
was
years
like
ago.
12 years ago.
Okay, so I think what I struggle with is the same thing I struggled with 12 years ago, is exactly what you and I are talking about, right? is we have a vision for the master plan, that's what all the department heads should be going towards. In the 12 years I've been doing this, I would say to you that the department heads squeeze every penny they have. I think they all do a very good job in managing their budgets and kind of doing the right thing. I can remember the previous chief being up here and saying, you know, I make the guys use the same exact car because that's their car, so they're going to treat it better. You know, like he talked about all these little things that they're all doing, right? I heard that again tonight. Like they're all doing the right thing, but we all just bless this. It's going to go to the town manager and it will go to the town council, and most of what we approve is going to get cut out anyway. So to your point, what is our authority?
Yeah.
It's an
What-
advisory board.
I'm sorry?
It's advisory almost.
Exactly. So to your point about how much clout we have or what we do have or we don't have, I think our job is, for lack of a better way of saying it, babysitting, to ensure that the guys are doing their job, and they all are, and the ladies, they're all doing their job. And then it goes to the powers that be and snip,
So,
snip,
but
snip.
I would level that up to say it's not just that. I think functionally maybe we've done that.
Yeah.
Like I think functionally what we've done is like, do all the plans make sense?
Yep.
I think that when I chunk up, I'm like, our job, our charge, and again, I need to read the RSAs, that is to ensure that the capital improvement plan, because what we have, we're the plan committee, not the capital improvement plans committee. What we have are capital improvement plans, plural, not a comprehensive capital improvement plan. I think that it's our job to ensure we have a unified plan that supports achievement of the vision of the master plan.
Right.
And this is like where
It should be the same thing, right?
yeah, or
It
this
should be
is
the same
like
thing.
a level of detail underneath that when a company drives towards that, which it will, I think, help us see something pretty quickly that's like, that is a nice to have, but it is not necessarily in service of the master plan.
Yep.
I think, after this process here, we should definitely meet and think what that looks like.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I know that we have deadlines in this process,
Yeah.
but my mind is very much into like, how do we get ahead of it, improve this process so that we
Absolutely.
actually are, I think, fulfilling our like statutory obligations as a committee.
So-
Not that we're not now, but I think we're just minimum.
Yeah, so I think too, I would envision this committee as a touchstone. Or this is a committee that brings everyone in and, you know, and then focuses on, all right, this is the documents, guiding documents that we have. How do you achieve it? And then you say, all right, well, we should expend money to all these types of projects. Problem with the master plan right now is, for instance, our transportation plan, hasn't been updated since 2000. So what my office is doing right now is, you know, every year we're putting a lot of money, we're putting 10 grand towards it. We are now at that point where we can do a whole update to the plan. So that's encouraging there.
Yeah.
So it'll probably take a year or two or a year and a half to actually have the documents in hand. But what Newmarket is doing is picking different chapters and not doing a comprehensive change. That's what has been decided.
But when I think about this committee, like when we think about the recommendations that we're going to come out of this,
Yeah.
like I feel like if it hasn't been updated since 2000, every year we should have had, and some of those years I was in this committee, so I'm completely taking responsibility here too, should have been like, update the transportation chapters of the master plan. Every year, one of the recommendations, update these chapters of the master plan. We have no guiding document from which, or at least not a viable one, from which to make a determination as to whether the department requests are actually in support of what we want to be as a community.
So just to summarize this, we want our committee to, you know, one, go over the master plan. We want the departments to go over the master plan and use that in their justification for the reasoning of their projects, and that's what we're looking for right now. And we want more of a power to get rid of plans if they're not in line.
I don't necessarily want the power. I have a question whether or not we have it or not.
Okay, so
Like I'm not asking for it. I'm just
Okay.
saying, like, do we have it?
So, but yeah, basically that's the summary, is just that we want this to be more focused on the master plan. We want the departments, when they're sending this stuff in, to show how it relates to the master plan, and we want to know how much authority we have to enforce things based on the master plan.
Right.
Okay.
Right, if we,
To your point, oh, I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay, you know, if we vote something down, is that just a recommendation?
Right.
That's probably what it is.
Yes.
which may or may not be, accepted.
So I know the funding is just a recommendation, but to me it is the, can we say this is not in alignment with the master plan?
Yes.
Go back and fix it.
I'm wondering if we have a pre-qualification meeting. Like, we're not gonna entertain this.
Don't even bring it
Yeah.
unless there's like, it meets these, like
Right.
there's a direct alignment to the
Right.
master plan.
But at the end of the day, we either vote for it or vote against it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, does that vote hold, I know the vote for the budget, the capital reserve fund, because we're not the capital reserve fund committee, we're the improvement plan committee, is purely recommendation. But the plan is where like, what authority do we have over that? I think that's the plan.
The capital improvement plan, yeah, I have to look into that, but the master
I just
plan
don't
is,
know.
master plan is planning board's authority.
I totally agree, right? But like, to me, like, I feel like we are, like, in some ways, like I know we're not a subcommittee of,
Yeah.
but like a supporting committee to the planning board, right? Like, who ultimately, like, and the council. We're almost like connective tissue between like the budget,
And the budget committee.
council, and planning board.
I'm wondering, we'll have to look into, the RSA's, but I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for this committee to kind of develop that plan. At least provide the space for it to be developed.
I think that as long as we don't, which I think is what happened in the past when we started having these conversations, lose steam come and find ourselves in the summer again, like, I think we do have an opportunity to like revision what this committee can do to help support the community.
Because, that revision process will, in that time, allow for these conversations to make for better recommendations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also think that, you talked about the format. The format could drive that whole master plan thought
Absolutely.
process, and you could actually guide the department heads
Right.
to what you're looking for. I think the key to doing that is the paperwork itself.
Any other business?
Meeting.
My meeting schedule business, so I apologize. I did not realize my wife's on the board of a charter school that has its board meeting on Monday when we're supposed to be meeting. So can we look at next week's schedule to see when we actually?
So Tuesday is election day.
Yeah, the state primary.
So and then it's a planning board afterwards. So it's gotta be Wednesday.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, I mean,
If that's not gonna work. But the other thing, I mean, if anyone out in the community wants to babysit.
I'm like booked every other night.
So
I mean, I
Monday's
can
not
do,
gonna work.
well, actually, it was a conflict, but I could do this.
I hate to say it, but I can do it tomorrow, Friday. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to bring it up.
But you're not gonna get all these folks in
People
here,
aren't
right?
gonna be here.
no,
It's not even 10.
yeah, right.
Yeah, so basically it's Wednesday or,
Or Monday.
Wednesday, Monday.
Or,
We can't do Wednesday, right?
I mean,
Do you have an alternate though?
I could try to cancel something I'm doing. I mean, I could egg out of it. It's another board I'm on. It's a training thing. I could blow it up for me.
I mean, don't we have alternates just in case someone can't?
Actually, yeah, I have an alternate. So if I can't do that, if for some reason I can't do that Wednesday, I would see if she could do it.
Are you comfortable with that? I know, like, you've been like,
I mean, I'd rather be part of this, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I mean, I can do this instead of that if I have to.
So, quick question though. Could you do it as a Zoom, and you could do it from home? No?
even if there's a quorum present?
Yeah. Because we would all
So like
be here, and
So
Phil could be home.
I had a state board meeting today where one person was Zoom because we had a quorum present in person.
Yeah, but we won't have a quorum.
Also, there's no, I'm gonna Zoom with a 22-month-old.
I'll send my wife to your house, no problem.
So, it's gotta be,
Wednesday sounds
Yeah,
like the
Wednesday.
only shot.
Yeah, I just hate to pull. I don't want my wife's board to trump your board meeting on Wednesday.
So for me, it's a training thing, which I think I can get out of. It's not a board meeting that I have to attend. It's something that we decided. It's like a little webinar thing.
Okay.
And maybe I can go watch the tape recording of it, kind of thing.
I'd appreciate. I'm sorry about that.
It's fine.
Like,
No, it's like, yeah, I get
And would it be still at 6 or as we were planning, or is it gonna be at 5:30? I'm okay with just keeping it at 6.
I have flexibility. What do people want?
Brian, you said it has to be 6 for you. I mean, it sounds like.
Oh no, I'm saying I can be 6, it can be 5:30.
Okay,
It's fine.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Earlier is better if we can do it. If not, I
Let's
don't.
do 5:30.
Jane, how does that work for you?
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
All right, then 5:30 on the 14th. We'll have our third meeting.
Thank you all. I'm, again, super apologetic. I should have remembered that was one of the
I mean,
event.
yeah, I
But
mean,
no,
the-
but you have to get, you have to
The
get
issue-
the department heads here then.
Yep. So that gives us more time.
yeah, and if we're not, if somebody significant in the process isn't gonna be able to be
All right.
here,
So what I'll do, if they can't make it, I'll have them have it email. They'll distribute to the board
right.
or committee.
So the issue really is that we needed to start this sooner.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're just kind of getting slammed into a really short time period here where it
Totally
doesn't do
agree.
justice.
And I'm looking to make this a better process.
Right.
To me, the big takeaway from all this is, and you're new here, right?
Yeah.
Like you inherited your process, that there's just a lot of space. Like if this group of human beings wants to commit time post the budget session to really help make this a robust process.
To do that.
Yeah.
It's interesting in a different form of government where a town meeting would consider line items. You know, if a CIP or a budget committee didn't like something, town meeting would want to know why.
Yeah.
You know, so if like the council wanted it, but the
Right.
budget committee didn't, usually that's an issue.
Like a warrant advisory committee, they recommended.
So it might have just been a recommendation, but in a town meeting environment, it's like, why, what's their issue?
And you know, like, it's a fantastic point, not to like stretch this out, but so when you look at a warrant, right, and I recognize like it has like council vote, budget committee vote.
Right.
Like this committee, like we give this to the town manager and like never gets called before the council, never like a voice inside of like the deliberative session. There's like no
Right.
like venue outside of
So that's an opportunity to have that venue, create that space. I think where, maybe we, go to the budget committee because that's the next stop.
Yeah.
Again,
I mean,
Yeah, right.
you have the representatives from the budget committee,
Right,
town
true,
council,
right.
and plan. I think the idea is that we would go back and like, if they had questions, like we would be the.
That's
answer.
true, right? Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point.
in this form of government, I mean, budget committees, it's so limited what real influence we have.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, actually. And this seems similar to me.
Yeah, it's like slowly. The budget committee used to have a lot more authority. I feel like it's slowly slipped away.
Yeah, I mean, if all we can do is change the bottom line, and then that could have actually been overruled at the town meeting.
Yeah.
So, and there's no real explanation, no real audience.
The budget committee gives the presentation to town council too, right? No.
Council sees what the vote was.
Yeah. Okay.
One last stupid question. Sorry. Is it the person who runs the planning in charge of this process?
There's no. I think Diane did it for forever, and it's kind of tied to planning because of the master plan and everything, So
Alright, no,
it has a planning element.
Yep.
Yep. But I think that's.
So you said exactly what I was going to hope you said. So to your point,
Yeah.
we need to find a way and just say, based upon the support that we're getting from the skills within the town, falls under the planning board who's in charge of the master plan. We need to tie the master plan into what's happening with CIP, and I think that's a way to group it, because that's how it flows. I mean, the head of finance isn't here, like
You know, they used to be. Matt used to be here.
yeah, Matt, right, and Matt used to be very active in it.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying though is, if we want to try to position it, I think that's the, one of the talking points or the pillars that we should use to talk about how this needs to go back to the master plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like, more and more, I just see how this this committee is the arbiters of whether or not the long-term plans that our departments have and town has in aggregate actually support as a community of the master plan.
Yeah, so the planning board kind of sets the master plan, and then, yeah, the arbiters, the CIP committee try to
Yeah.
guide.
For the
the impl-
long-term
well,
planning,
yeah,
right?
the
And
implementation
like the
of
zoning
the-
board like deals with stuff like at the like immediate space.
Well, they're adjudicative.
So when we
Yeah, right.
vote against something, it would either be that it just doesn't support the master plan, it's not there,
Yeah.
or it shouldn't really be a capital thing.
Right.
You know, it should be a budgetary thing.
Right.
And so, and same thing, with establishing the new capital reserve funds, how is this gonna implement the goals and visioning of the master plan?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when you're establishing new ones, or.
I mean, you'll see,
or
like, right, like-
warrant, yeah.
Like, we also like have different approaches to capital reserve funds. You have some places here, like police, right, that have multiple capital reserve funds. You have others, like, that have very like, purposes. And
Right.
others, like wastewater, is like, everything falls under there, right? Like, what is our
Correct.
approach to that? We don't have like a consistent approach to that.
Right.
We're sort of waxing philosophical.
Right. But I think that's a good discussion to
Right.
continue.
I was more alarmed by the leak than he seemed to be.
Yeah, I know.
I looked at that, it's like, my wife's like, they had to tell people to stop watering their yards for right now, you know?
Yes. Yeah, when I saw that email, I was like, what the? What?
So, do we need a
Motion
to adjourn?
We'll take a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is Wednesday the 14th at 5:30.
Yep, in council chambers.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bart, thank you
Thanks, Tim.
so much for all the work on this.
Yeah, but honestly, this has been one of the best years. Boom, boom, great organization, it's gone well.